Night has fallen. All disturbances have sunk into the crevices between light and shadow. You no longer need to wrestle with today, nor stand trial alone in the courtroom of your heart. Breathe slowly. Let the unfinished arguments, the silent regrets, the unspoken hatred and pain all loosen their grip in this moment. You've already done enough. Now is the time to grow still, not to escape the truth, but to learn how to dwell with it in peace again. I am Zadkiel. I do not deny all that you've done, but I also will not let you be trapped forever by the definition of what you've done. I come from the violet flame, the deepest purification, and the quietest compassion. I bring no blame, nor do I forgive lightly. I simply guide you to see why it hurts so much, why you acted that way, why it's so hard to let go. You do not need to change right away. You don't have to rush to explain yourself. All I ask is that you sit with me, and I will stay with you through the shame, the judgment, the wall you built around your own heart. Forgiveness is not a gift bestowed. It is a choice made after understanding, and I will stay with you until you are ready. Then, true freedom will rise from within you. Now, close your eyes. I am here. Together, we will walk into that place you have forgotten, the place still waiting to be illuminated. Your soul will return to its light. I am Zadkiel. You may not know my name, but you have surely felt my presence. When you cried silently at night, not for others, but for the things you once did. When you looked in the mirror, ashamed, angry, disgusted, yet unable to look away. When you replayed a single moment over and over, whispering, "If only I hadn't said that. If only I hadn't done that." In those moments, you were not alone. You were already standing near the threshold of my light, because I am the one who waits outside every soul's private courtroom, not to forgive you, but to sit beside you until you are ready to truly see why forgiveness feels so impossible. I am not a gentle comforter. The forgiveness I bring is not sugar to sweeten denial. It is fire, refining, awakening, and true. I am a flame of violet light, hot but never harmful, radiant yet never blinding. I burn away illusions you no longer need and shine into the broken chambers of your soul you have tried to forget. My name, Zadkiel, means righteousness of God, or sacred justice. At first glance, justice and forgiveness seem like opposites, but true forgiveness does not dismiss wrong or erase consequence. It simply rises above the need for retribution. Justice is not the end of the story. When you see the source of the wound, the roots of anger, the depths of ignorance, you understand that forgiveness is not weakness. It is clarity. It is responsibility. It is strength. In the divine order, I am the guardian of transformation, not judgment, not consolation, transformation. I carry the lamp of sorrow awakened by awareness, and awareness ripened into rebirth. No matter how far one has fallen, the moment there is a spark of, "I wish to change," I arrive. Not to erase the past, but to help you see. You are still worthy of rising again. I do not interfere with human will, but I wait quietly at the gates of repentance. My presence is steady, balanced, just. I do not silence your pain. I guide you to understand it. I do not demand you drop your hatred. I walk with you through it until you're ready to let it go. My wings shimmer in violet and gold, both burning flame and soft nightlight. You may not see them move, But when they cover your tired soul, you will feel the stillness. You will feel the release. My voice is not loud, but it pierces through the hardest shell. My gaze is not sharp, but it sees the tenderest part of you. I am Zadkiel. I was waiting before your remorse began, and I will remain until your forgiveness takes root. I am not here to be pleased. I am the light that leads you back to your truest self. Forgiveness, a word overused in your world and often deeply misunderstood. Many believe that forgiveness is a kind of indulgence, a way of letting it go, a soft and spineless kindness where the wounded one swallows the pain and pretends nothing ever happened. But I tell you this, that is not forgiveness. That is suppression. That is not liberation. That is spiritual numbness disguised as virtue. True forgiveness is never an escape from truth. It is a conscious act of freedom that comes only after truth has been fully seen, fully felt, and fully integrated. It is never cheap. It is the alchemy of the soul. And I am the guardian of that fire. I have seen many souls bury their pain beneath a smile, wearing the mask of forgiveness while their inner wounds deepen into silence. And I have seen others who cannot forgive themselves, who abandon all light and love because they deem themselves unworthy. They punish themselves endlessly, thinking that pain is the price of redemption. But I tell you, pain is not the destination. It is not the path. One can live a lifetime drowning in punishment and never once truly repent, never once truly change. Forgiveness is not the extension of suffering. It is the transformation of suffering into awakening. I am the flame that appears the moment you stop running. You may weep before me. You may shout in anger. You may curse me for showing you what you are not ready to see. And still, I will not leave. I will sit beside you again and again as you face every gate of shame, regret, and truth you once sealed with fear. I am not your savior. I cannot forgive you on your behalf, but I can light the path. I can show you the way. And when, one night, you finally whisper to yourself, "Enough," I can no longer live beneath my own curse. In that moment, you are not pardoned. You are awakened. You are choosing to see the one you once were, and to meet that self not with hate, but with clarity and the faint echo of mercy. True forgiveness is not forgetfulness. It is not denial. It is not cosmetic peace. It is the unwavering choice to not let the darkness rule your heart, even after you have seen the depths of that darkness. It is not easy. It is a personal revolution, and I am its flame bearer. I will not whisper, "It's okay," but I will walk beside you until you say, "I finally understand." And in that moment, your soul will shine, not because of me, but because you have found your own light. I am not the sweetness of love. I am the trial that follows love. I am the journey you must walk alone before dawn returns. I am the echo you call out to in your loneliest hour. I am Zadkiel. In the name of divine justice, I hold hidden within me the fiercest gentleness. And if you rise from my fire, you will carry with you a peace deeper than silence and a power softer than mercy. This is forgiveness. This is your path, and you are already walking it. In realms beyond human sight, There exists an ancient alchemical furnace, not built of metal, but formed of consciousness itself. It rests deep in the stillest part of the celestial realm, and every soul who dares whisper, "I wish to see the truth," offers fragments of memory into this invisible fire. I am Zadkiel, and I am the guardian of that furnace. You may not realize it, but the deepest remorse within you is not a curse. It is raw alchemical matter, heavy, shameful, toxic at first, yes. But if you stop running from it, if you allow it to rise instead of burying it, it will begin its silent journey toward that sacred fire. In the flame I tend, it will be refined. The disguise will burn away. The poison will transform. And what remains will be the most bare, most radiant core of your being. This is not an easy path. Many souls live lifetimes without entering this fire, because it demands truth, because it demands pain, because it demands a courage that is unborrowed. But to those who do walk in, I see you as the bravest of travelers. You do not seek comfort, you seek truth. You do not ask me to erase your past, you ask to face it. And from that facing, you allow the past to be refined into power. A power that is not praise, not permission, but the shimmering strength of a soul that has burned itself clean. Like diamond, like starlight, like the unmoving heart of violet fire. In the divine symphony, I am not the force of creation, nor protection, nor prophecy. I am the force of transmutation. I turn poison into medicine, sin into sight, shame into truth. Only when the darkness within you is no longer feared can it be exposed to sunlight. Only when you dare to see your innermost self can the angel within you awaken. This is no miracle. It is a response to will. The heavens do not force you into light, but when a soul kindles the intention, I wish to face it, I wish to repent, I wish to become more than who I was, then I appear, not with thunder or flame, but with a silent fire in the quietest hour of your night. You may not feel that fire all at once. It is not violent like judgment, nor sharp like consequence. It is warm, steady, a slow, knowing heat. It burns through your disguises. It melts your false stories, and it will not make you forget your pain. It will simply allow you to see it differently, not as I was a failure, but as I finally understand. I am Zadkiel. I do not lead you into sleep. I awaken you from it. I do not paint the night in false color. I walk you through it and hand you the light you forged with your own hands. Not all will choose this fire, but if you do, you will never be the same. You will no longer need others to define you. You will no longer beg the world to forgive you, because you will know you are ready to forgive yourself. Many cry out to me in prayer, "Zadkiel, forgive me. Please make my heart feel lighter." I hear them, and I respond, but not always in the way they expect. I do not speak soothing words. I do not reach out to erase the parts of yourself you've hidden away. Instead, I sit quietly in that chamber of your soul, the one you've locked away, the one no one dares to enter, and I wait. I wait for you to turn, to see, to weep. I do not represent evasive mercy. I represent matured compassion. Mature compassion does not gloss over wrong. It looks it in the eye, acknowledges the pain it caused, and still chooses healing. It does not bypass the wound. It walks through it. And from that passage, new flesh grows, new heart, new vision. You must understand, You are not your mistake. You are not the labels the world has cast upon you. You are a light that once lost its way. This world is heavy with rules and moral weights, religions that bind with guilt, cultures that imprison with shame. But remember, repentance carries more power than punishment. Shame is not your permanent home. It is a gate, and once you choose to walk through it, I am there to hold your unraveling consciousness so you do not collapse. My power does not come from the hierarchy of angels. It comes from a deep, lived understanding of human struggle. Forgiveness is not a privilege, not a throne, not a favor. It is the sight of suffering's source. It is the embrace of complexity, the admission of chaos. When you begin to see that your harm came from your own wounding, that you destroyed because you were never shown how to love, that very insight becomes the first fuel of transmutation. I will never choose for you. I will not whisper, you should forgive them. I will never command, you must let it go. Because that is your right, your sacred freedom. What I offer instead is the mirror. If you do not forgive, you remain chained to what wounded you. And the deeper truth, you are not holding on to them. You are holding on to the part of yourself you cannot bear to face. I do not interrupt judgment. I do not cancel consequence. I am here to remind you, you can transcend it all. You can carry the weight of responsibility without building a cage from it. You can face the truth without turning it into a lifelong weapon against yourself. You can rewrite your own name, not by forgetting what was, but by refusing to be defined by it forever. I am Zadkiel. I am the watchman at the gate of forgiveness. I will not open the door for you, but behind it, I will light a lamp. And if you choose to face the door, to raise your hand, to turn the handle, you will see me. You will see yourself, and you will see that the light was never gone. What you call forgiveness is not merely a psychological release. It is a deeper return, a return to your original nature. You do not forgive in order to become a better person. You forgive to shed the false names, the twisted definitions, and become who you already are. Forgiveness is not about pardoning a flawed version of yourself. It is about ending the misidentification with that version altogether. Across countless journeys of the soul, I have seen a common misunderstanding that only after suffering enough pain, shedding enough tears, can one be worthy of forgiveness, as though agony itself is the currency of redemption. But have you ever wondered, true transformation never comes from pain alone. It comes from seeing, from looking inward and recognizing the root of your rage, your flight, your destruction. It comes from owning the origin of your shadow and saying, I will not turn away. That is where the alchemy begins. Forgiveness is a high-frequency movement of consciousness. It does not whitewash the night into day. It lights a single quiet candle in the dark. Many believe that forgiving means burying the truth. But no, forgiveness means knowing what truly happened, acknowledging the pain that truly occurred, and still choosing not to let it define your present or your future. And I am the one who walks with you in that movement. Not in your outer world, not in your contact list, but in your innermost being, sitting still at the center each time you spiral into guilt, regret, hatred, shame. You may not hear my voice, but you have felt my presence. In moments when a strange calm surfaced within, not because you solved anything, but because you began to draw near to me. I do not live in your past, nor wait in your future. I am present in the moment you choose to see. When you stop beating yourself for a second, when you look at yourself not as a verdict but as a being, when you tell the one who hurt you, I will not carry you inside me anymore. When you whisper, I'm sorry, or thank you, into the silent air, you are near me. And in that nearness, I do not need to speak, because change has already begun. Forgiveness is not words, it is a shift in atmosphere, a clearing of vibration, a quiet release of the roles you've clung to, victim, sinner, punished, not because you have become good, but because you are done pretending. You are ready to live in truth, even if it means carrying scars, so long as you do not carry the lie anymore. I am Zadkiel. I am not here to define you. I am here to help you remove the names that never belong to you. And in the moment you stop asking, do I still deserve love? In the moment you cease to fear your former self, you have returned from the fire. You are no longer who you were. You are the soul who can now echo with truth. I am light. When you truly walk the path of forgiveness, you'll find it doesn't end in a declaration, not in the words, I forgive you, nor in the moment you whisper, I've let it go. True forgiveness is a quiet revolution of awareness. It arrives in the still of morning, when the weight in your chest has simply lessened. You no longer cling to every memory like a wound. You no longer replay every word like a curse. You find that you don't need to forgive, because the one you were holding against has already become a lesson, a story, a softer kind of truth. Forgiveness is not a finish line. It is the beginning of the return to your true essence. I am Zadkiel. I do not ask you to forget your pain. I walk with you until your pain flowers into understanding. I do not force you to forgive anyone, not even yourself. I simply cradle that quiet wish inside you. I don't want to suffer anymore. And when you stop demanding perfection of yourself, when you release the old roles, when you abandon others' definitions, you begin to touch who you truly are. And in that moment, you will see, I was never waiting outside you. I have always been here. The forgiveness you feel is not mine. It is yours. Born from your willingness to see, to hold, to soften, to tell yourself, without drama, without fanfare. I still want to keep walking. I do not symbolize authority. I do not offer divine pardon. I carry the power of decriminalization of the soul. You are no longer defined by your history. You become one who can redefine it. You stop asking, what must I do to be loved? You begin to know, I have never lost the right to be loved. You stop fighting for justice from the world and instead gently change the direction of your inner wind. That is forgiveness, soundless, but radiant. You see, the final secret of alchemy is not that metal becomes gold. It is that the alchemist finally understands he was gold all along. So too, the mystery of forgiveness. You don't need to become anything new. You simply need to remember that you are light. I am Zadkiel. I am violet flame. I am furnace. I am guardian. I am stillness. I am not judgment. I am not command. I am not miracle. I am the moment you turn. I am the bridge between I hate and I understand. I am the warmth that tells you, In the darkest night, you are not alone. When you stop clinging to, who am I? When you let go of, what have I done? When you simply say, I want to move forward, you have stepped into my light. And that light does not belong to me. It belongs to you, to your awakening, to your remorse, to your courage to hold and to let go, to the one you are becoming, beyond shame, beyond hurt, beyond identity, a being of original light. In the highest of realms, the celestial spheres are not the flawless harmony humans often imagine. There is no eternal peace, no perfect love without challenge. Among the gods, power reflects power, wisdom coexists with pride, and compassion stands shoulder to shoulder with divine authority. It is a field of consciousness far more intricate than the human world. Light may be brilliant, but it is never without undertow. And I, Zadkiel, saw the true place of forgiveness not in soft light, but in a rupture that cracked the throne of divine certainty. It was the dawn of the balancing aeon. The gods held their stations, each embodying a law of reality. Elreus, the god of insight, wielded his all-seeing gaze with cold exactness, slicing truth from illusion without pity. Shabaril, god of judgment, stood silent and absolute, maintaining the scales of right and wrong with unshakable sternness. And then there was Melantha, mother of life, a starfield of gentle breath. She loved all, even the possibility of redemption within sin itself. Her tenderness was a discomfort to some. The fracture came over a question no god could answer simply. What is the true definition of sin? At the close of a celestial cycle, a divine child named Urian transgressed. He summoned fire beyond his rank, causing a collapse in dimensional planes, annihilating a region of stars, and with it, 1,000,000 soulkin. Shabaril demanded divine purification, obliteration of Urian's entire soul matrix. Elreus, calm yet cruel, proposed consciousness lockdown, sealing Urian's essence away. Only Melantha knelt at the star core, asking for forgiveness. He still carries unlit light, she whispered. The gods fell into silence, and I stood in the crevice between their wills, watching the ache of a disagreement that was not born of contradiction, but of shared truth, unable to unify. This was not a debate of good versus evil. It was a collision of divine consciousness itself. Judgment, insight, compassion, each true, each irreconcilable. And in such moments, forgiveness is not a forceful voice. It is the softest exhale. I did not intervene. Forgiveness cannot be imposed. I simply stood guard by Urian's sealed soul. He neither cried nor protested. He only burned silently in the forge of his own ruin. Yet within him flickered a small fire, not to save himself, but for those he had destroyed, a wish to become someone else. I stepped into his awareness and said, "Forgiveness is not waiting to be released. It is no longer carrying your sentence through the rest of your life." He did not reply, but the fire in his palm tightened. Then, the miracle began. The seal, meant to last eternally, began to dissolve. Through pure remorse, he melted every shard of guilt without excuses. His every layer turned into willingness. Melantha felt it first. She called the gods. "Come, see. He is no longer who he was." Shabaril bowed his scales. Elreus closed his seeing eye. And I said nothing. But from my chest rose violet flame, not to praise, not to judge, only to witness, a God-child redeeming himself in sacred sorrow. It was then I understood. Among gods, forgiveness is not compromise. It is the moment when another's true repentance gathers all divine will and releases it. In the far north of the celestial realm, there sleeps an ancient god named Azrael. Once known as the Lord of Divine Wrath, he governed punishment, celestial fire, and retribution. His will was obsidian sharp, unyielding and cold. He believed in purification, not repentance. He orchestrated 7 heavenly storms, erased rebellious celestial legions, annihilated half-gods who trespassed into forbidden spheres, and even destroyed an entire city of thought, simply because its inhabitants began to worship a theology of forgiveness. He said, "Forgiveness is betrayal." He said, "The moment mercy enters, justice dies." And I never argued, because I knew one day he would come to me. And he did. Not in his God form of flame and fury, but as a broken thread of light, fractured and wandering, that slipped into my quiet palace of deep violet fire. "Zadkiel," he whispered, with a voice I had never imagined could be his. "Did I do wrong?" From him, those words thundered louder than any storm. I didn't answer at first. I sensed it, a rupture in his divine core, as if something essential had collapsed. He didn't speak of what had happened, but I knew. He had tried to punish a rebellious seer, a daughter of prophecy. And just as he descended in flame, she looked up at him, smiled and said, "Thank you. May you be free of vengeance one day." That smile, it broke him, not because it mocked, but because it loved. And he had no armor for love. "I don't know who I am anymore," he said. "I used to define justice through punishment, but now I cannot even judge myself." I approached him. His once mighty ring of wrath lay in dust. He was no longer a thundering god, just a silent presence, a fallen warrior with no battle left. "You wish to forgive yourself?" I asked. He trembled and nodded, but I shook my head. "Number you are not ready." His eyes widened, as if betrayed by me. "You think forgiveness is a right," I said. "You believe admission equals absolution. Forgiveness is not your exit strategy. It is not a staircase down from shame. It begins only when you abandon the identity of being right, only when you surrender your last weapon of righteousness." He was quiet for a long time. Then, for the first time, he sat down. Not as a god, but as a soul. "What must I do?" he asked. "You must accept," I told him, "that what you destroyed was not only rebellion, but the part of you that was capable of loving it. You feared that forgiveness would reveal you too, could have been gentle. And now, if you wish to begin, you must reach into that cracked place and retrieve what you once buried, your own forgotten compassion." He didn't speak, but in the shadow of his rage, I saw something stir, a single thread of violet fire rising. It was not mine, it was his. And in that moment, I knew the Lord of Wrath had begun his rebirth. In the mist abyss of the celestial realm, there lives an ancient and enigmatic being whose true name has long been erased from divine record. The gods call her the eraser of memory. She governs neither time nor death, but something far stranger, forgetting. She walks the line between memory and non-memory, tasked with dissolving images once destinies have been fulfilled, or broken, or abandoned. She has no history of conflict. She speaks rarely. She drifts like cloud. But then, one day, she whispered a question. Whom did I forget? That quiet tremor shook the heavens, for it challenged a law never before questioned. Does forgetting also carry a price? She began to search, not through records, but through the ocean of her own fragmented awareness. She found only vague traces, a half-formed gesture, a distant echo of laughter, a gaze fading at the edge of dissolution. She knew not whom she had forgotten, only that once she had loved, and now that love was nowhere. Terror gripped her, not the terror of divine ruin, but the human ache of having buried one's own heart. She feared she had once forgiven someone who was unforgivable, and that, to make peace with that choice, she had erased both their names, even her own memory of them. She came to me, not to demand, but to ask. Zadkiel, she murmured, if a god forgets whom she forgave, does it still count as forgiveness? I looked at her and saw for the first time tears born not from memory, but from the longing to remember. I said, forgiveness is not measured by recall. It is measured by your attitude toward what remains. If your heart chooses gentleness even in the haze, then that forgiveness still lives. She paused, then whispered, will I ever see him again? I meant to say, that is unknown. But instead I said, if you wish it, forgiveness not only erases pain, it can summon souls. She placed her hands upon her chest. Then I wished to remember. And in that moment, the miracle was not an explosion, but a reversal. The stellar data fields began to reassemble. A lost record, a long erased name, slowly surfaced. He had been a fallen god of the old aeon. He had shattered world orders, extinguished thousands of soul races. But in his last breath, he had begged for release. And she, in love, in defiance of divine law, chose to forgive him. She deleted all records, all traces, even her own memory of their bond. It was the highest price one can pay for mercy, to love and then forget that one ever did. Now she chose to recall, which meant choosing pain, choosing to re-acknowledge her fall, choosing to carry once again the label, I loved the condemned. I did not absolve her. I could not. I simply stood with her as the resurrected thread of soul emerged, a tender and fractured being. She whispered, I remember you now. I'm sorry. And in that moment, her light, mingled with fog and ocean depths, began to shine. And I simply nodded. For some forgiveness is proven not in what we say, but in the fact that we are willing to remember what once was too painful to hold. In the celestial realm, there exists a sealed court known only as the Hall of Mirrors. It allows no spectators, needs no judges. It opens only when a god requests judgment of themselves. There are no walls, no ceilings, only reflections. And those reflections reveal not faces, but consciousness itself. Every motive, every hesitation, every deception laid bare. Few gods ever enter, only those with nowhere else to run. One day, a god of prophecy entered. His name was Shemorath. a high deity in the time domain, keeper of the prophetic laws. He orchestrated future timelines, delivered celestial oracles at pivotal intersections of cosmic flow. He was revered until the Great Silence. In one era of overlapping starfields, he gave a prophecy to a mortal race. Leave your homeworld, your rebirth awaits. They obeyed, they traveled, and instead of new life, they found the star rift. They were erased. It was the most silent disaster in divine memory. No punishment was given, but trust was lost. And Shimurath, he could not explain the failure. Every thread of time he searched said the same. That outcome should not have happened. So he chose to enter the hall. For 10 days, he said nothing. On the 11th, he summoned me. Zadkiel, he whispered, will you judge me? I answered, you are not seeking judgment. You are fleeing understanding. He opened his eyes. They held something rare for a god. Fracture. I only want to know, he murmured. Can I be forgiven? I approached him. You are not seeking forgiveness, I said. You are seeking a logic that convinces you you weren't wrong. You still refuse to admit you were there. You acted, and they died. He tried to respond, but no words came. You did not err in the prophecy itself, I continued. You erred in presence. When you gave the oracle, your consciousness was already in the 1000th year. You had long departed their prayer. You were not in cause, but they paid the consequence. The mirrors trembled. A crack of fire traced across the floor. He asked softly, then do I have the right to ask myself for forgiveness? I closed my eyes, and after long silence I said, when you finally admit that you were there, not the all-knowing you, but the hesitant, fallible you of that moment, then the path of forgiveness begins. He bowed his head and asked, what do I do? You don't do, I said gently. You stay. Stop standing in the future, judging everything from above. Come back to now, even if it's painful, even if it's unclear. Forgiveness begins when you stop escaping into time. The mirrors began to dissolve. His divine robe split. Runes of time peeled from him like falling petals. It was not destruction. It was unbecoming. He shed the title of prophet and sat for the first time as a soul that could say, I was there, and I sat with him among shattered reflections, listening to the silence pierced by light. Among the earliest stars of the celestial realm, there existed a god so small, so unnoted, he was barely named. He held no mighty office, no grand destiny, no history of battle or prophecy. He was simply there. The other gods called him the first tremble, for from the moment he was born, he shivered. He was not darkness, nor light, not creation, not destruction. He was a whisper of consciousness, a gentle maybe, always unsure, always quietly thinking. Perhaps I was never supposed to be. No one blamed him. No one gave him duties. Yet he carried a silent trial upon his shoulders, a crime without action, a sentence without law. The first time he came to me was at the edge of the stillness rings, a place so quiet even time forgot to move. He looked down and asked in the softest of waves, Zadkiel, do you see the wrongness in me? I looked at him and replied, you've never done anything wrong. He shook his head. That's why I feel I must be forgiven. All the gods move, act, shine, intervene, but I only wait. I am afraid to act because action might hurt. I do not reach out. I do not glow. I do not speak. And yet I feel as if I'm always harming something by not becoming anything. His words struck deep, a purity so inward it had turned into shame. He continued, I have longed to become the guardian of a star, but I always stepped back. I feared that if I began to shine, I would be needed, and if I were needed, I could disappoint. So I chose silence, so that no one would ever expect me. I stepped closer and said, you do not seek forgiveness. You seek permission to exist. He looked up. Something shifted in his gaze. First tremble, I said. Your shivering is not sin. Your quiet is not failure. Your hiding was protection, not weakness. But I've missed so much, he whispered. All the selves I could have become. Are they lost forever? I watched him and let the violet flame rise, slow and soft. Every version of you never became, I said, still waits inside you. Forgiveness is not a hand on the past. It is an invitation to your potential. What you must forgive, I said gently, is not a mistake, but the shame of having done nothing. He was quiet, then finally spoke. I want to stop using fear to disprove the worth of my beginning. And in that moment, he glowed. Not brightly, but like someone who had finally welcomed the sound of their first heartbeat. I did not say, you are forgiven, because he wasn't waiting for that. He needed only to be allowed to live, not as an avoidance, but as a presence. In an epoch when even the gods slumbered, there existed a soul named Sylph. She was not part of any pantheon. She bore no divine title, no cosmic rank. She was born not of decree, but of vibration, a spontaneous shimmer of the universe. She was not great, not brilliant, not strong. She was simply becoming, a whisper of light forming, like the first dew on the edge of dawn. The first time I encountered her was during a rare celestial drift, where soul streams misaligned across dimensions. She had been torn, shattered into 7 fragments, cast across the veils of being, and I felt her call. I could have intervened. I had the right, the power, even the pathway. But I hesitated, not out of arrogance, not out of cruelty, but because she was too faint. So faint I wondered if I was simply imagining her. She had no registration, no celestial classification. No one was assigned to her care. She was, by all definition, a flicker, perhaps meant to vanish. And in that moment, I did not move. Later, I learned she was the seed of a future force, a being who would have become the resonator, capable of awakening dormant light in countless soul races. But I arrived too late. I searched all dimensions, retrieved one shard. There she was, sleeping in the hollow veil, dreamless, memoryless. Her final imprint was a single question. If I'm not important enough, do I still deserve to be caught? I knelt beside her remnant. My violet flame did not rise. It dimmed, collapsed inward. That night, I became the angel of forgiveness. Not because I forgave her, but because I have never forgiven myself. You have seen my gentleness, my silence, my fire. But you have not seen the nights I spend kneeling beside a soul that will never return, asking again and again if I had believed in her flicker, would the world be different. From that day, I vowed, no matter how small, how unsure, how unnamed, if a soul dares whisper, I want to live, I want to become, then I, Zadkiel, will no longer hesitate. I am not the angel of forgiveness. I am the one who once failed to show up, and I walk the heavens for one purpose, to never again witness a soul flicker and leave it uncaught. So, I do not teach you to forgive. I simply stay until you stop abandoning yourself, as I will never again abandon the hand I once did not reach for. She was just a therapist. 10 years in a white-walled office in a quiet corner of the city, listening to 1,000 fractured stories, depression, PTSD, childhood trauma, moral fatigue, grief, infidelity, suicidal dread. Her name was Lin Lan. She did not believe in gods, nor in demons. She believed in brain chemistry, Freud, Adler, Jung, the rewiring of the prefrontal cortex. She believed every sorrow could be analyzed, every wound mapped, every emotion charted. Until that woman came, her final client. She never gave a real name. At the first session, she only said, "You can call me nothing." Lin Lan hesitated, assuming it was a defense tactic. "Nothing," the woman said, "is the only way I've survived. I lost my family, my name, my faith, even the sense that I'm human. I am nothing." Lin Lan began her standard protocol, cognitive framing. But every time she tried, the woman simply looked at her and said, "You are not here. You are not with me." Lin Lan felt an unease. For the first time in her practice, she felt afraid. The woman's gaze, it pierced through every practiced word, every soft nod, and touched the place in Lin Lan she kept furthest from herself, the void. "You come to heal," the woman said, "but you don't believe people can be healed." Lin Lan froze. Her pen dropped. "You try to repair other people's fractures, but yours, you sealed it shut a long time ago." Lin Lan's throat clenched. "You don't need to analyze me," the woman said gently. "You just need to forgive yourself." I did nothing wrong," Lin Lan whispered. "Oh, but you did," the woman smiled faintly. "You gave up your true name. You're not a doctor. You're a priest." Then, something shattered in Lin Lan's mind. She saw a memory, one she had buried, age 7. Her mother sent her to a healing church. A priest made her confess original sins. After that, she stopped speaking. She stopped believing in anything sacred. Becoming a therapist was her retaliation, to control healing, to sterilize grace, to replace salvation with science. She never allowed herself to believe in change, because deep down, she never allowed herself to believe she was worth saving. The woman stood, placed a hand on her forehead. "Zadkiel," she whispered, "come back." Lin Lan's body convulsed. Something, frozen for lifetimes, began to crack open. She tried to speak, but her voice choked. Then she saw it, in the woman's eyes, a swirl of starlight. Not metaphor, not illusion, a literal galaxy spinning in silence. "You are the first," the woman said, "who must be forgiven. Not for your mistakes, but for the part of you that never believed you could hold something sacred." Then she vanished, truly, like light dissolving into morning. Lin Lan collapsed. The walls of her clinic didn't crumble physically, but within her something cracked. The shell of her professional self, the identity she'd used to survive. She cried. and cried until dawn, when a voice rose in her mind, I am Zadkiel, and in the human world, I have finally begun to forgive myself. He always thought he was just a museum curator. His job was simple: hang the frames, angle the lights, plot the history, and guide the flow of visitors. He dealt daily with images of war and death, but the more he saw, the less he felt. He had learned to cover guilt with neutrality and smother pain with academic tone, until that night. After hours, alone in the gallery, he stayed to adjust a display titled Silence. It was a photo wall, hundreds of portraits submitted anonymously, witnesses of war. No names, no context, just eyes looking at the camera, saying everything and nothing. As he adjusted a spotlight, he heard a voice. You are among them. He spun around. No one. He whispered, I'm just tired. But when he turned back, one more photo had appeared on the wall. His. Same clothes as today, but his eyes, unfamiliar, haunted. He looked like a man awaiting his verdict. He stumbled backward, knocking over a display case. Glass shattered. War diaries spilled across the floor. One book fell open. In blood-red ink, it read, We were not silent. We were complicit. He turned to run, but the room warped. The gallery became a courtroom without judge, without exit. Voices began to rise from the photos. I wasn't part of it. I was just nearby. I didn't say anything. I was only translating. I just pressed a button. I just closed the door. I just didn't stop it. The whispers crescendoed, a human choir of denial and distance, and he stood at the center. Then he knew. This was not his hallucination. This was the unconscious of humanity, and he was the mirror it had chosen. The lights died, and then a voice deeper than thought. You were not summoned for judgment. You were summoned to carry the weight of not seeing. You are the convergence of the ordinary. You did not kill. You did not cheer. But neither did you question, nor mourn. You do not owe for their sins, but you must answer for the words, This is not my problem. He collapsed. Tears struck broken glass. Then he remembered. His great-grandfather, a wartime postman, silent about the past. Except once, before death, he whispered, We did not know. We just didn't have the strength to know. Now he understood. Forgiveness is not about rewriting history. It is the willingness to say, it could have been me. In that moment, Zadkiel rose within him. Not a figure, not a myth, but a flame, the violet fire of unbearable honesty. And he spoke, not loudly, but with clarity. I am willing to see. The wall began to fade. The photos closed their eyes, as if relieved, as if the ceremony, long overdue, was complete. He remained kneeling until dawn, and the photograph of himself gone. He had been sentenced to death. No appeals, no denials, no emotions. He had murdered a child. The nation knew. His name became synonymous with evil. News anchors refused to speak it. Only the crime remained. He said nothing, not at trial, not in prison, not even a single tear. He just sat, as if already hollow, as if death would simply finish what had long been absent. On the final night before execution, a guard asked if he had any last words. He shook his head. That night, lying alone on a cold iron bed, he heard it, a child's voice, software barely audible. "Will you let me go?" His eyes snapped open. No one. Then, he saw. A boy stood at the foot of his bed, 5 or 6 years old, clean clothes, unfathomable expression, not fear, not accusation, but sorrow, the kind that comes when someone waits too long to be recognized. "Are you him?" His voice cracked. The boy shook his head. "Number, I'm not the child you killed." "Then, who are you?" The boy looked down. "I'm the one you were when you were little, the one who should have lived." His chest seized. A memory surged. Age 7, locked in a basement, beaten, humiliated, no rescue. 3 days of hunger, silence, abandonment. He had once whispered to himself, "I don't want to be me anymore." And in that moment, that version of himself had vanished. He had survived, but cold, mute, disappeared from his own soul. Now, the boy he abandoned stood before him. "I don't hate you," the child said. "I've just been waiting for you to see me." "Why now?" he whispered. "Because tomorrow, you leave," the boy replied. "You can leave with your rage, or with me. You killed someone. You may never be forgiven. But if you still won't see me, you haven't even forgiven yourself. Don't let evil become your excuse to stay blind." He wept. For the first time. He wept like a wound finally being touched. He had buried his guilt in rage, silenced his shame in numbness. He thought he was dead. He was just missing. Then, Zadkiel came, not with wings, not with trumpet, but as a light, descending through a crack in the ceiling, a softness that filled the room. The child looked up, smiled. "I can go home now," he said, and dissolved, a flicker of warmth returning to the man's chest. He breathed, deeply, then whispered the first honest words in decades. "I'll take you with me. Not to end, but to begin again." The next morning he faced his death. No resistance, no trembling, only peace, and perhaps the faint trace of a smile. A guard later said, "I've never seen anyone face death as if they'd just been caught." He had been unconscious for 9 years, clinically a vegetative state, minimal brain activity, stable vitals, no response. But elsewhere, he was awake, inside a prison, one he built himself, a windowless circular stone chamber, at the center, an iron chair, around him, rows of invisible witnesses. Each day he sat for trial. You killed your mother. You abandoned your lover. You took what wasn't yours. You left her knowing she was pregnant. You were proud, cold, selfish. You don't deserve forgiveness. These voices, relentless, rhythmic, rehearsed. He no longer knew when they had become so precise. It was as if some hidden judge was scripting it. He accepted it. He did not fight. He believed it was what he deserved, because in life, he had indeed failed. On the night he crashed his car, drunk and spiraling, all those failures came flooding back. The crash fractured his skull and his will. In the hospital, his wife visited daily. His daughter read him stories. He heard them, but did not respond, could not respond. because he refused to wake, not because he was incapable, but because he believed waking would be an escape. He feared forgiveness was too light. Until one day, a voice not from the jury echoed through his prison. "Do you truly understand who you're punishing?" He froze. Silence swept the chamber. He stood. A figure emerged from the shadow, cloaked in darkness, yet emanating light. Not heat, but presence. "You are not the condemned," the figure said. "You are the condemner. You call this redemption, but this is retreat. You are not hiding from what you did. You are hiding from what you still could do. You would rather suffer than risk hope. You would rather sleep than bear responsibility." He whispered, "I don't deserve to be released." The figure stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Zadkiel," he said softly. And in that moment, he looked to the gallery, the witnesses, their faces blurred, and then they all became him. 1,000 versions of himself in 1,000 timelines, each delivering judgment. His mother's grief, his lover's fury, his child's gaze, all masks of his own voice. He collapsed, sobbing. "I see now. I wasn't afraid of guilt. I was afraid of what happens after guilt. If I forgive myself, I'll have to live. And I don't know if I can." Zadkiel said nothing, only opened his arms. And in that embrace, the 1,000 fractured selves melted into a single violet flame, settling into the core of his soul. He opened his eyes. In the hospital, after 9 years of silence, he blinked. Tears slid down his cheek. Doctors rushed. Family froze. His daughter's book fell to the floor, and he said, "I've returned. Not because I'm innocent, but because I'm ready to take responsibility." He was 17, an ordinary high school boy, no trauma, no poverty, no cults, no disorders. His parents loved each other. His grades were average. He wasn't popular, but not alone. On the surface, there was no reason for anything to go wrong, except a secret. Since he was 14, he had dreamed of the same woman's death. Not vague imagery, but horrifyingly vivid. She runs, she's chased, locked in an abandoned building. She screams, struggles, and finally, hands around her neck. Her eyes look not at a stranger, but at someone she once trusted. He thought it was a past life, or maybe just a distorted movie, until the dream spoke. "You killed me," he cried out. "I don't know you." "Not yet," the woman said, "but you will." He woke drenched in sweat, heart thundering. He told no one. He searched everything: psychology, reincarnation, psychic forums. Nothing explained why he would dream of a crime he had not yet committed. Until he saw her on a street corner, holding books, eating bread. The wind caught her hair. She turned her face. He knew. It was her. His stomach dropped. He walked away. Fast, but not fast enough. Something in him was already stirring. That night, she returned to his dream. "You now have a choice," she said. "If you continue, you will fall in love. You'll form a deep bond. But you are not ready. You will not be evil. But one night you will lose yourself, and I will become collateral. I am not your past self. I am the echo of the soul you are destined to wound. Zadkiel placed me in your dream so you could awaken. Early." He wept. "What do I do? Avoid her? Don't love her?" She shook her head. "Not avoidance. Awareness. Forgive yourself. the you that might become a harm. Do not fear your shadows. Hold them, cool them with light, and you will rewrite time. Fate isn't fixed. It waits to be seen. She smiled and vanished. After that night, she no longer appeared. In waking life, they met again. Naturally, became friends. He listened, learned to pause, observed every flicker of his temper. At 17, he carried a weight most men never touch. The sacred responsibility to never become the version of himself he had once seen in a dream. Zadkiel stood at the edge of every dream he ever had, silently watching. The boy's future was no longer a single thread. It was now a field of light-split paths where mercy had arrived before the mistake. He was 90, bed 17, terminal ward, body shutting down, but his eyes still burning. Doctors said, he's not in physical pain, it's his mind that won't let go. He didn't complain, didn't curse fate, he just wouldn't die, not from clinging, but because he knew he hadn't forgiven himself. He had no great sins, no scandals. He was a school teacher, 30 years, quiet, kind, consistent. But inside him lived a scar, untouched for 70 years, age 19, a party, a friend, bullied. He was a student leader. He could have stopped it, but he feared those in power, feared being shunned. So he turned away. The next day, his friend jumped. No investigation, no blame. But he remembered. That night, on the stairwell, he stood still, ears against the wall, hearing sobs and choosing silence. From that day on, he became a good man, helpful, gentle, responsible. He tried to erase that night by living righteously, but he never looked back. "I'm not afraid of death," he told the nurse. "I'm afraid that if I die now, that night will never be seen." That night, he dreamed. A voice spoke. "Lucy." He opened his eyes. A man in deep violet robes sat beside him. Clear gaze, warm presence. "Are you God?" "I am Zadkiel," the man said. "I'm here for your final trial. But I'm not a criminal." "This isn't about guilt," Zadkiel replied. "It's about discovering where you refuse to forgive yourself. Will you allow it?" He nodded, and the room shifted. He was 19 again. Stairs, sobbing, wall, his younger self shaking, paralyzed. Zadkiel asked, "Do you know what you hated most?" "My cowardice." "No," Zadkiel whispered. "You hated the part of you that still had love, but didn't act. You couldn't forgive not your coldness, but the truth that you wanted to save him. You couldn't face the fact that you had power and didn't use it." Tears poured down his cheeks. "Do you see?" Zadkiel stepped closer. "Forgiveness is not release from mistake. It is the willingness to mourn the light you did not use. If you can cry for that light, you have redeemed everything." He wept, not as a man seeking life, but as one dying into forgiveness. He opened his eyes. The lights above his bed dimmed slowly, and his face wore a smile. Doctor's note: patient passed peacefully at 3 a.m. No distress, serene expression, and in the corner of the room, a violet light, never plugged in, shone quietly until dawn. I once walked across a land that had no graves, only still dust, forgotten bones, and one phrase never spoken. I remember you. This place bore no war's name, no flag claimed it, no textbook mentioned it. The dead were too scattered, too meaningless, too unrecorded to be called sacrifices. They were not soldiers, not martyrs, not even numbers. They were simply in the fields, in the kitchens, in the stations, in the everyday seams, and then gone. No last words, no ceremony, no tombstones. They could have been mourned, but no one knew where to begin. So they stayed. In the air, beneath the rivers, haunting corners of cities that always feel just a bit too heavy. They became a silent noise, unheard, but always in your dreams. I exist for these voices, not to defend them, but to grant them a complete disappearance. They do not ask for forgiveness. They ask for acknowledgement. That someone, anyone, knows they lived, knows they hurt, knows they vanished, and knows they mattered. You think you never went to war, but have you in peace forgotten a death that wasn't yours to remember? He may not be your relative, but he may be the sadness in your chest you've never been able to explain. He is not your burden, but you can become his return. Tonight, close your eyes. No ritual, no religion. Just this. Say to a stranger soul, a death you never knew, I remember you. You were not silent. If you do this, you will see it. A violet flame will light in the deepest chamber of your mind. Not Zadkiel's fire. Yours. The first time you ever lit a light for the unnamed. They are not waiting to be mourned. They are waiting for you to admit you were never separate. You did not cause their end, but you can take part in their homecoming. In the spaces you believe were never real, there is a gathering of souls, unnamed, unheld, unwritten, unmourned. They are not recorded in the world, but in the deep ocean beneath human thought, they form the most subtle, most dense, most silent ripple. I am Zadkiel. I have touched them, in the realm where choices were never made. Those faint lights, briefly imagined, then dismissed. Those embryo shadows, already whispered goodbye before form ever found them. Those flickers, swallowed by the deep after someone said, I can't have this child. They do not blame. They never learned what it means to expect. But one question they all ask me, did I count? I do not answer, because it's not my question to answer. It's yours. You, who whispered, I'm not ready, or cried quietly in the dark, or turned off the light and said nothing. You need not regret, but you may remember. You don't have to grieve, but you may admit something once tried to arrive through you. Maybe it was a forgotten mistake. Maybe it was your friend's passing comment. Maybe it was your mother's hidden sentence she never found the courage to finish. They never judged you. They just wait in your chest for one real moment of recognition. Not in the law, not in the rules, but in the soul. I know you are here. Tonight, do not light candles. Do not search for names. Just close your eyes and light the smallest flame in your heart. Say, I don't know your name, but for a moment, you flickered in me. Thank you for trying to come. This sentence will not break you. It will illuminate you. Because finally, you will have said yes to a brief, unfulfilled crossing that still deserves its moment of light. I am Zadkiel, and I light flames for the souls never named, but only your flame can guide them home. You think death is the quietest thing? It's not. The quietest thing in this world is the possibility that never came to life. I am Zadkiel, and I often find them in people's dreams, abandoned creations, a melody left unfinished, a crumpled draft, a sentence choked in the throat, a bookstore never opened, a podcast never recorded, a dance never finished, a plane ticket never used, a whisper of "I want to try," never spoken aloud. These are not dreams, they are extensions of your soul. You think you just didn't finish, but truly, you never let it be born. These unborn selves line up in the alleyways of your subconscious, like travelers who never boarded. They wait, not with blame, but with silence, waiting for you to someday turn around and say, "I remember you." You may say, "I can't do everything I dreamed." I know. That's why I'm not asking you to finish. I'm only asking you to light a lamp. Tell them, you did not bloom in vain. Even if I never began, even if I abandoned you, even if I never chose you, I still say, "I'm sorry I was afraid, but thank you for coming." You don't know how much frozen energy will melt with that one sentence. You don't know how many silenced voices inside you only wanted a glance. Don't wait to become great to acknowledge your small light. Your creation doesn't need to prove you matter. Your creation is you mattering. Tonight, no projects, no goals, just close your eyes and whisper, "I am willing to love the version of me that tried to be born." And somewhere, you'll hear it, a soft reply, not your mind, not a ghost, just the part of you that tried to become. Finally hearing that it was not garbage. It was a gently grieved version of you. I am Zadkiel. I won't light your future, but I will sit beside every version of you that never came into the world. And when you're ready, we will let it rest, or we will let it return. There is a kind of silence that does not come from malice, nor from apathy, but from something far gentler, a softness that couldn't speak. I am Zadkiel, and I have seen countless souls at the edge of death glance quietly back toward a familiar face once held dear and whisper deep in the spirit. I always wanted to say I'm sorry, but they never did. Not because they were proud, but because they didn't know if speaking it would make it worse. There are people like this. They know they hurt someone. They didn't destroy a life. They weren't evil. They just withdrew. And in that distance, sorry became an abyss. Do you have someone like that? You deleted their last message. You hung up on a call. You were too tired, too raw, too ashamed to respond. Then time passed. Too much of it. And now you think, it doesn't matter. They had their faults too. It's too late anyway. So you buried it, layer by layer. But that unsaid, "I'm sorry," became a needle just behind your heart. Look away. It rests. Glance once, and tears rise without warning. Let me tell you the truth. You don't always have to say it, but you must acknowledge it. What breaks us is not unsaid apology. It's the refusal to admit we wanted to say it. When the opportunity to express is gone, love isn't. You just need a whisper of the soul. Tonight, close your eyes. Call that person forward, in silence. No need for reply, no need for return. Just say, truly, I wanted to say I'm sorry, and maybe I'm not ready to be forgiven. I'm not ready to re-enter your life, but I want you to know, I never forgot you. This is not a reunion, not a restoration. This is a clearing. You don't need a reply, a phone call, a message. You just need to light up the version of yourself who always wanted to whisper, but was silenced. I am Zadkiel. My violet fire does not speak for you. It only illuminates your quietest truth. Tonight, you are not gaining forgiveness. You are giving that sorry a rightful place. That unsaid sentence was not failure. It was a sign that you loved. You often feel anxious, easily triggered, too apologetic, afraid to speak up, afraid to disappoint, afraid of being too much, afraid to succeed, afraid to become someone. You think these are your issues, but I must tell you, sometimes you're simply feeling on behalf of your ancestors. I am Zadkiel. I walk the fault lines between generations, and I have seen entire soul chains linked by silent fear, passed down like thread through bone. Not because anyone chose it, but because no one knew where it began. You think your people-pleasing is yours. You think your distrust of joy is yours. You think your self-sabotage is some flaw. But what if they belong to someone before you? Your grandmother's wartime survival code, your grandfather's shame after losing everything, your mother's instinct to shut down, your father's grief that never found voice. You did nothing wrong, but you were chosen to be the one who feels it all. And your pain is only heavier because you thought it was yours alone. Let me tell you, it's not your fault. It's not their fault, but it is now. Your choice. You can stop blaming their brokenness. You can stop blaming your stuckness. Tonight, you can light a lamp for the path of inherited pain that no one else could name. You don't need to know where it began. Just close your eyes and say to your body, I know you're carrying something that isn't yours. Thank you for holding on. Then say to your soul, I allow these feelings to be seen here, with me, so they don't have to be passed on. You will feel a small tremble, not emotion, not breakdown, release. You thought you were alone, but you are the voice for every ancestor who could not speak. You thought you were weak, but you are strong enough to be the end of a chain. I am Zadkiel. I don't fix your trauma. I just remind you, you already became a healer the moment you stopped denying your own weight. You don't need rituals, or mantras, or temples. You only need tonight to say, I'm not crazy. I've just been unseen for a very, very long time. And then you'll know you just lit a path to freedom for all those who came before you.